FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by AnyBuilds. Check out their A300 right now from Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Thanks everyone for hanging around. Matt's back again. We've got FSS up next. Now, who here knows FSS, FlightSim Studio? Okay, handful of you. They obviously developed the E-Jets, and then as of yesterday, they're also now working on a 727, which is going to be released at some point over the next month, I believe. And we've got lots of questions to ask them about that. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Martin from FSS.
Thank you, thank you.
Cool. So, thank you. How are you, all right?
Oh yeah, it's been a long day already. A lot of good talks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. I'm really enjoying it. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. So let's start with kind of how the company got going and what you did to start it off. So how did you found the company? How did FSS, how was it born?
Well, we did some things for Explain before in another brand, and then we got contracted to Microsoft for a lot of content for the space sim.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much behind the scenes, so nobody knew that we were doing it. Like we did, the first time we did sceneries, and then we started to work on the entire glider story. So coding thermals, setting up the gliders itself, airfields and all that stuff. And after that contract ended, we decided to do our own things. And that's where we came to public. And that's where it all started.
Okay, cool. And your first major release, obviously, as FlightSim Studio was the E-Jets. Now, they've been out since kind of late 2022, and there's been lots of big updates since then. I'm kind of curious to hear, what do you think has been the biggest update, the most challenging update, perhaps, to push out to the community?
Well, every update is pretty special because we put a lot of effort in them. We have a lot of bug fixes, then we have improvements, and we have new features. One of the major features were like the new auto throttle, for example, the custom auto throttle code. Then the 190 and 195 release, which was kind of still an update.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And challenging is that we always have quite a short time frame that we give. So every 4 weeks or 6 weeks roughly. So it's hard to put all the community feedback in there. And sometimes it takes more updates, but we always look out for feedback from the community, what they want to have, and we try to put it in as soon as we can.
I can only assume, I'm not a developer myself, so I wouldn't know, but it must be quite hard to like build a timeline for how long it takes to build something without knowing how to build the thing, right?
Yeah, and you don't know what's coming next, because if the community votes for something or just says that like we want to have that thing, then we need to put that into our development pipeline.
Sure.
And sometimes you don't know how long that's going to take and how much work it is. So yeah, that's kind of challenging.
Okay, cool. So the E-Jets are, as I understand it, still in early access, right?
Yes.
More updates coming. I'm wondering how many sort of updates, what other big features need to be in the E-Jet before you would be happy calling it done, complete?
Well, I'm afraid it's never been done at some point, but the important thing is the custom flight management system, and it's connected to the autopilot, custom autopilot.
Sure.
So this is the only thing that is not real custom yet. So we have put a lot of effort into the aircraft system themselves, but the FMS is still not done. And this is the only last big milestone. Of course, we're going to continue to work on it even after version 1.0, but then the major feature set is complete.
Okay. And how is work on that going at the moment?
Pretty good in general. We just released a status update 2 days ago, and that was the first time we showed people what we're doing in the background.
Sure.
Because right now we're just coding, and this is quite boring, right? Just showing coding lines, that doesn't make anyone happy.
No.
So we showed a video of our application where we code the FMS and the MCDU. And it already feels like setting up a good flight plan, having a VNAV profile. You can see all that in that video. It's just not in the sim yet. That's the only thing that's missing. They're going to take some time, but I think it shows that we are actually working on it, and that it's already working on our side.
Sure. Okay.
FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by Pimax. Check out their Pimax Crystal Light right now for some of the best VR headsets available today.
So that's the E-Jet. I want to turn our attention to the 727, but before I do, I want to talk a bit about how you must be like dividing development time, right? Because we've seen this not just with you guys, but also with a couple of other developers in the industry who are announcing, you know, a new project before the previous project is finished or before it's even been released in some cases. And that can and has sparked concerns before among the community about, you know, oh, they're going to divide the development resources. Is it going to slow things down? What do you say about those concerns, and how do you quell and calm people down and reassure them that actually things are still on track?
Yeah. The good thing is we don't need to divide anything because we have two independent development teams. Independent means they have their own 3D artists, their own coders. They can work on one project individually, and they're not connected to each other. That means everyone is working on their project, and this is good. Because you cannot put all those guys, we have 20 people in total in the company, so you cannot put all those 20 people into one project. That won't work, right? It won't speed it up. It would even slow it down because you cannot have, like, you cannot split up the coding into like 10 people.
Yeah, you can have too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Exactly. So we split it up, the teams, into two, so they work independently. However, one example is where we still share the knowledge across the projects is when we have a feature like, for example, the custom ground power unit that we did for the E-Jets, or we introduced them in the E-Jets, but they actually came from the 727 team because the 727 team already did that, but at that time we couldn't announce or release it in the 727, but we thought, well, it's working well and the E-Jets could benefit from it, so let's put it into that project as well. So it initially got introduced in the E-Jets, but it was actually developed in the 727 team.
I see. How long has the 727 actually been in development out of interest?
Yeah, I checked that before. The first working item that we added to our internal project management system was back in December 2021.
Right.
So that's quite a long
time ago then, yeah. Okay.
It is.
Why the 727? What makes you want to develop this particular type?
Well, I mean, it's a fantastic and iconic aircraft. I really love it. So it's a little bit of a personal interest. But also, if you want to do an aircraft properly, you also need to have the documentation for it.
Sure.
And fortunately, we had that, and I still have. We had contact to an old Pan Am documentation set. So we have literally tons of books that we scanned with all Pan Am fleet data about the aircraft, about engine performances, the crew manuals, everything. And that was the moment where we said, okay, we can actually do it. We don't not only want to, but we actually can.
Fab. And so, I'm just curious again, you say it's a passion project in some ways for you. What draws you to that specific type? Is it like a childhood thing, or?
To be honest, it's because this you can do everything with this aircraft as a pilot, because there's no limit, there's no system limiting you in doing something. If you want to land with the spoilers deployed, you can. The aircraft won't retract the spoilers for you like the E-Jets. If you do that in approach and you're too fast, it won't deploy the spoilers because the system will block you. Right? In the 727, you can do anything, and that's what they do in some part of the world still. Right? There are some videos.
We've all seen the videos.
Yeah. Right. And that's I call it the freedom of flying.
Yeah.
Right.
It's awesome. So you've announced the freighter version.
Yes.
Right. Are we going to get a passenger version?
For sure you will.
Awesome.
But that's going to take a while. We took the freighter because it's still flying. It's the only type of that aircraft that's still in service.
Yeah.
So you can have some real-world operations with it.
Sure.
And then also the passenger version is a little bit more of a work because you need to have like the entire cabin, maybe cabin announcements and stuff.
Cool.
But as soon as the freighter is done, we're going to start working, or the 3D artists will start working on the cabin, on the PAX version for the 200.
Right, I see. Okay. And so to kind of like summarize this then, tell me sort of about the feature set. I know you've already talked to me backstage about the kind of avionics you put in. So you've got the working title GNS 550, the PMS GTN 570, and the TDS GTN XI, but then you've also done a custom in-house SIVA INS,
Yes.
and the GNS XLS for the SMC.
Yeah.
That must have been a lot of work, presumably, to code all that and to get... But you've got the documents, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the GNS XLS is like a retrofit old school FMC.
Yeah.
There's no nav display, so it's old. It's like an INS, but with a better interface. Right? But we already have like the SimBrief flight plan import and all that nice and shiny features. It will still take a while. I'm not 100% sure if we can ship that on initial release, but if not, maybe a couple of weeks later for free. And the good thing is you can choose what kind of avionics you like, right? Because there are still some people who want to enjoy the classic aircraft, but with like the benefits of having a GTN 750 with like VNAV calculation and a magenta line. There are some that want to put in all the waypoints manually into the INS. So there's an option for everyone.
Awesome. One more question from me, and I'm going to open it up to you guys. So start thinking about questions that you might have for Martin. You've obviously got the 727 on your stand in your booth at the minute at the Expo. People have been having a go. What's the feedback been like? What are people saying?
Oh, it's pretty awesome. Most of them say they've flown that in X-Plane, the FlightSim 727.
Sure,
yeah. And now they're pretty happy to have like the same aircraft in MSFS. And the feedback is amazing so far. We know that there are still some things to do, bug fixing, etc. That's what we're on it. That's why we're not releasing it today or this weekend, but in 4 to 6 weeks, so roughly around end of July, if everything goes well. Of course, that's not 100% sure. But yeah, the feedback is fantastic, and I think people are really looking to fly an old school, manual gauge aircraft. And that's what we have.
Awesome. Thank you. Right. Have we got any questions for Martin in the audience? You sir at the back. There's a microphone coming to you.
First of all, kudos for the E-Jets. When you brought them out, there were a lot of people that bashed it as no good, long way to go. You're keeping up with it. You're keeping the people involved, bringing the updates out. Hopefully with the 727, because I will buy that day one.
Perfect.
You do the same with that. So it's not a question. It's just confirming that you would be doing the same with the 72.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, we, like in our company, we always try to match what we say, right? At the beginning of the E-Jets release, nobody was aware of us because we have been in the back and working for Microsoft, okay? So that's okay. But we said from day one that we're going to update the aircraft each like 2 weeks at that time, then cycle to 4 weeks and now to 6 weeks roughly, and that we're going to improve the aircraft. And no matter of the overall feedback, we just did that, and that's what we're keeping on, just doing what we're saying and improving it constantly across all projects, of course. And that's to me that's pretty successful because now people see that we're actually doing it what we're saying. That's not essentially normal. So yeah, that makes a lot of fun to work with. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Martin from the audience? Yes, here at the front.
I know we spoke earlier today, but regarding the custom FMS and VNAV, I know you're looking for a release this year, possibly summer, and if so, like before the European summer.
Yeah, so we released the status update 2 days ago, and the situation is like we're unfortunately slower than we expected for a ton of reasons, but we are progressing well. As I said, we can't just show it because it's just code lines. But now with the FS24 coming up, this is kind of a difficult situation for us because it always, they say it's going to be backward compatible. They also say that for the sim updates, and we know that we always have to spend a lot of work into keeping the aircraft alive in each sim update. So what we're going to do is, as soon as we have a beta of these Flight Simulator 24, we're going to test the E-Jets and all other projects, of course, and make sure that they are working in that new environment. And that will have a major influence on our timeline, because if it's not working in the FS24, we first need to change the code or adapt to whatever it is that's not working before we can continue, because the worst thing would be we release like the version 1.0 right before the FS24 release, everyone buys the new simulator and our ejets are not working. Right? That would be the same if there's a new sim update and the ejets are not working anymore. Right? That's kind of a big deal. So we have to make sure that everything is set up well before we're going to release anything major. And, well, we don't know when we get the beta, but I hope soon. Kudos to Jörg. I hope we're going to get it as. Right? Yeah, so that drives our timeline next to all the other things in project management like that you're dealing with. Like, yeah.
Awesome. Right, so we're going to have to wrap it up there because we've got Just Flight on in just a second, so hold on, stay seated for that. But I have to say, Martin, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
What's your booth number?
It's Aerosoft, right in front of the big Microsoft booth.
Sure, so next to Aerosoft, they've got the 727 on stand. Go over there, have a go.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure to have you.
All right, thank you,
Round of
guys.
applause for Martin.